All right, so we talked about propagating plants sexually. Now we're talking about asexually. So sexual propagation is similar to sexual reproduction, but asexual propagation is quite a bit different than asexual reproduction. So you can use a different number of different strategies. So remember that asexual is not producing a child of that plant; it's producing genetic clones. So there's no change from one plant to the next. So cuttings, and I've mentioned this before. So one of the most common ways is cuttings. That's just taking a piece cut from a plant that's then rooted. So there's some ways you could do this. You could there's rooting hormone. You can dip them in rooting hormone, and that's going to stimulate it. You could put it in water for a little bit and let it grow roots. Or some plants you can just, like a spider plant, you can take a piece off of it, stick it in the ground, and it's going to grow. Not all plants can be propagated this way, but many can. And it doesn't hurt. Like if you see a piece of the plant laying on the ground, go for it. Test it. Put it in the ground. See if it's going to work. Cuttings should be made using a clean, sterile, sharp blade. Most cuttings rely on stem cuttings. However, a few indoor plants can be propagated from leaf cuttings. So 2 types of cuttings are tip and medial. Tip, use a 5 to 6 inch section cut from the tip or the stem or the branch. Medial, use a section of the stem, not including the tip. Both cuts should be above a node. The nodes are like those parts where leaves are going to stem from. Section of stem should be 2 inches to 6 inches long. So you remove any flowers or flower buds from it. The plant should be able to devote all resources to rooting because you're wanting them to develop roots. For woodier plants, you're going to remove the tough outer layer with a sharp knife. So they talk about rooting hormone. You can buy this at your local hardware store or local nursery. And it's just got some chemicals in it and hormones that allow it to kind of get the ball rolling and more likely develop roots. So the cutting you should place securely into a medium. That could be sand, vermiculite, soil, peat, perlite. Medium, whenever they're talking about like in plants and horticulture, a medium is basically just what the plant is grown in. And some plants are different. Different plants are going to do better with different mediums, right? Some can do fine with water. So some benefits of asexually reproduced plants. Plants are genetic clones. So it allows you to recheck their environment's genetic variations eliminated. So it's like, imagine you had a drought-resistant tomato plant. If your child generations are produced through sexual, you can't replicate your experiments. But if you do it asexually, you're getting the exact same plant every time. So you can make sure that you're testing the same plant. Layering is another type of propagating. It occurs naturally sometimes. So stolons or runners, which are in strawberry or spider plants, these are basically like plants that you see like little pieces go on. Those are runners. So in layering, a piece of the plant stem begins to grow roots into the soil while remaining attached to the parent plant. So it's like trying to grow on its own, but it's still attached to the parent. So you can encourage layering by wounding the plant stem or bending it sharply and using appropriate rooting medium to provide aeration and moisture to the new root system. So you can take it and stretch that runner and put it in that way. It'll start growing in a different area. And then there's dividing and separating plants. So separating plants is means of producing and propagating plants that grow from bulbs or corms underground. Like a tulip's going to grow from bulbs underground. Dandelions, bulbs look like kind of like onions. You plant them in the ground in the fall, and they emerge in the winter. You can just separate them to make more. So you can dig up some of these plants and transplant them, put them somewhere else, and that will work usually. Grafting and budding plants. Grafting is a little bit more complex. So grafting and budding are used for plants that will not root well from cuttings. A lot of trees are done by grafting. So there's different types, but they all work in the same way. So you can see how they're taping them together. So basically, you create an open wound in the rootstock and the scion. So the two are going to heal together. Cleft grafting is the most common, but other methods are also used. So the root system being grafted to is prepared by making a clean cut. So you cut through the stem. A wedge or mallet are used to create a cleft or opening in the rootstock. Scions or cuttings are inserted in the cleft, typically on either side. Grafting paint or wax is used to seal the opening, like that. So basically, say you have like a tree branch. You're going to cut off part of that tree branch. You're going to take the piece that you cut off and you're going to fix it to the part where you cut it, but not where it's right on top of it. And it's going to kind of grow off of that original plant and start developing roots that way. So roses are typically propagated through budding and grafting. It's a little bit more complex, but you can, like an arborist, someone that owns a nursery, a landscaper, it's a great skill to have. So people will pay to come have their plants grafted.